So many people dream of becoming a full-time trader. You know, the moment you pull up a chart, the moment you know like financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom exists, that's the vision, that's the dream. But what does that really look like? You know, what are the step-by-step processes of going from having a full-time job to having a full-time trading income? Of course, you need the skills and you need the discipline, but beyond just that, you actually want to have a really solid financial game plan to do that. The majority of these numbers are going to be US-based expenses, incomes, but I'm also going to be giving you formulas so that you can do this and you can plug whatever numbers that you need in based on where you live, your circumstances. So let's get this started. We're going to need a couple numbers first. So the first thing we have to decide on is what income we're looking for. You don't need to be a six-figure trader to be able to have this be an income that takes care of you and allows you to live a pretty great life. So I narrowed it down to $60,000 a year. So 60K annual income, that's what we're gonna shoot for in this video. Step number one, calculate your living expenses. Determine your monthly living expenses. I'm talking about your rent or your mortgage, your car payment, lease, your groceries, utilities, whatever it is that you're spending, you're gonna wanna really sum that up and get to a number. For the case of this video, we're gonna use the average monthly expense in the US for a single person. Now these numbers range anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 a month on average in the US for living expenses. So when we add this up, we're looking at anywhere from $30,000 to $36,000 a year in living expenses. Now we decided this first because we want to know the bare minimum, what we're really looking for. We want to know, in order to live the life that we currently live, what do I need to be covering? And so when we have these numbers down, we're able to actually build a real plan. Oftentimes people talk about the dream of being a trader, but you don't even know what numbers you're looking for. It's just kind of this vague idea out in the clouds. But once the numbers become real, once you have structure, once you have clarity, then we can put energy behind it. Step number two, we want to establish an emergency fund, right? You want to create, I like to call it like a peace of mind fund. Because as you know, so many different things influence your trading, right? The emotional day-by-day life, you have things that are going on in your relationships. But if you have financial burden, if you have financial stress while you're trading, it's gonna be a disaster. So having this emergency fund really, it brings down the pressures of having to make income every day or every week or every month. It allows you to really continue that long-term vision. So we wanna create an emergency fund of anywhere from 6 to 12 months to cover living expenses. Now we just said 30,000 to 36,000, that's gonna cover a year's worth of expenses. So let's narrow this down to anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 in expenses. That's the kind of fund that we're looking for, right? Anywhere from 6 to 12 months. So we want to create a plan, and we're going to get to that, where how do we actually save that and how do we actually build a fund like that for any type of situation. Really important is this money needs to be liquid, right? This needs to be liquid, money that you have access to. I'm not talking about a 401k where you need to ask all these permissions and then get deducted and to get access to it. I'm saying something that, hey, you know what? You had a bad trading month? No problem. I can just take away from here and the rent is taken care of, right? There's no worries. This is exactly why we have this fund. So that's step two. Step three, we want to estimate our trading capital. So how much money do I need to actually trade in order to make 60K a year? Now, the thing with trading capital is this could be your money, but also you just need access to trading a certain amount of money and to be able to get 60,000 in income for this situation that we're creating, right? So first, we need to figure out, okay, what average annual returns can we get, right? And let's think conservative. You know what? Like, I know we're all savage traders and we can do some big returns, but let's like highly undervalue. Let's just drop the numbers down, think conservative. And so I'm gonna give you two examples. In the first example, let's use what some of the biggest hedge funds in the world are doing. They're doing 15, 20%. So let's say that we're doing 20% annual, okay? So that's what we're capable of doing. We want 60K in annual income. We believe that 20% average annual return is a fair number. So we need to figure out, how much money do I need in order to make 60K doing 20% a year? So to generate $60,000 at 20% annual returns, you're gonna need $300,000 in trading capital. So this is how it works. Initial investment multiplied by your annual return, that'll give you your desired income. So $300,000 times 0.20 equals 60,000. Now I know what you're thinking. Mike, bruv, 20% a year, come on, man. We're better than that. We can do more. And look, I get it. You know, we go on winning streaks and we have some crazy months, but at the end of the day, it's not about what you can do once, it's what you can duplicate, it's what you can do over time. But look, for the sake of my savage traders, my elite traders in here, the disciplined ones, the ones that are like, man, that's chump change. Let's assume, let's highball this at 50% return. So if you're like, you know what, I want to do 60K a year. I think with $60,000 a year, I can go full time, and I believe that I'll do 50% in a year. Let's use the formula again, right? 60,000 divided by 0.5 equals $120,000. So 120K in trading capital, you do 50% annual return, that'll give you that 60,000 that you're looking for. Being real, 50% a year, that's unusual, that is rare. Unless you're a politician, you don't see that happen all the time. Now I know it can be done and we've seen it happen before, but I just want to set the right expectations. So if you are going to plan for something, I think it's better to look at lower numbers and then surprise yourself, right? Then over deliver for yourself. Okay, so we know what we need for our emergency fund, and now we know what we need for our trading capital. So what we want to do now is we want to create a game plan on how do I actually build up this emergency fund. So how do we create kind of like this savings account, right? So we understand at this point the total that we need. So step number 4, calculate the total amount that you need. So we said we need 30 to 36,000 in an emergency fund, and we need 300,000 for trading capital. So total, we're looking at anywhere from 330,000 to 336,000. However, your emergency fund, that's what you need liquid. Your trading capital, that doesn't necessarily have to be yours. This is where the term OPM, other people's money, comes into play. Now there's a lot of ways to do this. And guys, look, it's at this point, the trading industry wasn't what it was when I got started. Right? I got started trading in 2015, and the only way you were doing this was depositing money into your account and then just growing that over time, depositing at whatever intervals that you have, and just, you know, little by little, brick by brick. But that's changed a lot. And now that's not the only way on how you can do things. Step 5, develop a savings plan. So what we want to decide is, how much money do I need to save every month to have 30K saved up, right? To have anywhere from $18,000 to $30,000 saved up. So what we want to do is we want to decide, 1, kind of what's in the budget, and 2, how long do I want to give myself to do this? And I'll give you guys, again, I'm just giving you guys some random numbers, but numbers that also make sense in terms of expectations. Now, yes, I've seen people go full-time trading in a year, in 2 years, but I honestly think 4 years and more is way more likely for those that make it. Remember, let alone, this doesn't happen all the time. Right? This is a high performance skill set. But in my experience, around the 4-year, 5-year mark of really consistently doing this is when people start to get to this level. So let's give ourselves 4 years, okay? So if we want to save up 4 years, we're giving ourselves 48 months. 48 months to save up $18,000 for our emergency fund. So you can use the following formula. Total savings goal divided by the total number of months, and that'll give you how much you need to save every month. So you would need to save $375 every month for 4 years, AKA 48 months, in order to hit that $18,000 savings level. Look, let's say that you're right now at a point where you already have the skills down and you feel pretty confident and you're like, you know what? I don't need that much time. I really only need 2 years because I have good faith in my skills and maybe you've been doing this for a while. So maybe you want to do 2 years, but you also want to have a bigger cushion at maybe $30,000. So what do? We divide 30,000 by 24 months and you get $1,250 in savings every month. So statistically speaking, most people, they can't save $1,250 every month. Now 375, that might be more possible. But at the end of the day, guys, one of two things need to happen then. We either need to reduce our expenses. So we either need to eliminate things that we're doing right now with our money, maybe even, find somewhere else where you're paying for less. Maybe you get a roommate, maybe you're almost done paying for your car, so that'll drop some expenses, whatever it might be. So that's one route that you can do so that you can actually save more every month and get to that target level faster. And I think this is better, you have to increase your earning capacity, right? So you have to increase how much money you're making right now. Because if you make more money, then obviously you can save money, you can save more faster. I'll be real, so often, so many people can find a better paying income or create income in whatever other ways that you can imagine, but you just haven't given it an intention, you just haven't made the right calls. And so maybe this is the motivation that you need to go, you know what, let me go make more money so that I can have more freedom. And yes, I know we're looking to get away from giving your time for money, but there's phases for everything. And so you might be in that phase right now, and that's okay because you have a game plan to exit that type of cash flow later. Step number 6, develop a trading capital acquisition plan. So now we have to create a plan on, okay, how am I gonna get $300,000 to trade? Because that's what we need. Remember, $300,000 and we're doing 0.20, right? 20% a year, that's what leads us to that $60,000 in annual income. So we need 300K. How do we do this? Old fashioned way, you save up money every month for probably a long time, right? Now, maybe you are watching this and you already have a high paying income, or you have a business and you have just whatever type of income at a high level. So maybe this isn't a problem for you. But for the majority of people that are watching this video, saving $300,000, that might take you a decade or two. The other route is OPM, right? Is other people's money. And there's so many resources and there's so many different methods now of having access to capital, having access to funds so that you can manage that. And because of your skill set, right, you are now trusted to make this money and you get a split based on what your outcomes are. So there's a lot of really, really curious and resourceful ways to getting access to this capital. So if you are gonna go the old fashioned route and deposit into your account, remember, you have your emergency funds plan and now you're gonna have your trading capital savings plan. So if you are depositing into your own account, you don't necessarily need to trade it, right? You can practice demo while you're just building up your trading account as well. And if you are, cool, you can just lean into it. You can just transition into it, trades low risk as you're kind of developing and building it up. Now, the grand majority of you are gonna go with OPM, right? Other people's money. And it makes sense because now you're not the one that has all of this money on the line, right? Because of your skill set, you're now able to trade that kind of money. And so if you are gonna go that route, figure out, okay, you know what, if I'm gonna give myself 4 years to do this, how much capital do I need to acquire every quarter, every 6 months, every year to get to 300,000? So if you are, acquiring 75K a year, in 4 years, you're gonna hit that 300K mark. And honestly, you'll get to a point where you probably do this maybe faster. So again, these are things that you want to keep in mind because there also is cost to acquiring trading capital as well. So keep these things in mind as you're scaling to that level. Could your emergency fund also double up as your trading account? Yes. Do I recommend that? Honestly, no. Because trading really comes down to behaviors and impulse control, and man, you just lose at one time. You might have a lot of money at risk, and especially if you're becoming a full-time trader or you're leaning on trading as a main source of income, you just don't know how you're going to handle those first couple weeks, those first couple months. So that's why I think having a plan and having some money on the side, completely separate, you're protecting yourself from all angles, and it's risk management outside of trading, and which kind of leans into inside of trading. All right, step number 7, optimize your expenses. So at this point in time, if we want to save that $18,000 to $30,000 faster, then okay, what could we be doing? Like I said earlier, we can, maybe you relocate or you move somewhere where your expenses are lower. For example, if you're in the US, a lot of cities in Texas, cost of living is way lower. If you're in New York right now, if you're in Miami right now, if you're somewhere in California right now, and maybe you're in Chicago, these are the most overpriced places in the world. Now I know, I lived in Miami and I've lived in Chicago. The connections are amazing, the vibes are immaculate, but you have to understand what season are you in right now, right? Are you in the season of sacrifice, right? Are you in the season of getting it done, or are you not willing to sacrifice those things? And you know what? I'm cool with waiting a little longer because I want to keep this lifestyle while I'm doing it. So you do have to make a decision. But on top of that, you can get really creative. So for example, when I started to understand where I wanted to be, how much I wanted to save, and when I wanted to kind of get to these levels, what I would do is this, because I worked at a bar restaurant, and whenever I worked, I think it was 10 or 12 hours, whenever I would clock in for that many hours, they would give me a second meal. So I was able to have lunch and have a late dinner at work for free while getting paid to do it. And so for 5, sometimes 6 days of the week, I wasn't even spending money on food. So it was like an added extra bonus, and I was just loaded up on protein shakes at home because protein shakes are just really, really cheap, right? You tub of protein powder for $50 and you have 30 servings, it was lit. So that was how I started to kind of optimize. Again, I was very obsessive and I was pretty extreme, but that's what I was doing. And so think creatively on how you can do that. As I mentioned, maybe you have a roommate, maybe you look at different outcomes. And same thing goes, once we get to that point where we are going full time, we also want to consider reducing major debts, reducing recurring debts as well. As we're getting closer, one of the really important things on top of the emergency fund and on top of having the trading capital is make sure that you're really lowering your credit card payments. Make sure that you don't have ongoing debt, because the moment that you're leaning on trading as a major income stream, the last thing you want is having to pay for something every single month, right? Having to make sure that you're paying off your car and you're paying off these things. And look, I get it, rent or mortgage, that one you're probably gonna be taken care of. But for example, an option would be paying your car in full by the time that you go full time. So that now you're not focused on making a $300, $500, $1,000 monthly payment. So if you can get rid of that one, you just gave yourself way less to stress about. And remember, the goal is not to look rich. The goal is not to fill in whatever vision people have of what a full-time trader can look like. That's not the goal, right? The goal is to be wealthy, to embody the skills, the characteristics, and the feeling of having that financial freedom, that time freedom, that location freedom. The longer you can wait to spend, the faster you're gonna get to the goals that you want to be at. So look, the longer you wait, at one point, maybe you really wait 6 years, 8 years before you start to buy some of the things that you wanted. But by that point, it's such a small percentage of your income where you're unfazed. So a lot of times people start making high 5 figures, 6 figures, and they want to look like they have money. So you're making $60K a year, but then you buy a $60,000 car. That's probably, you're looking at like a $12,000 expense a year, if not more. So the longer you can wait, the better it is. Let's say you just give yourself a couple more years and then you're making $250K a year. Okay, cool. Now having a $500,000 monthly payment, now it's a fraction. It's not a big cost anymore. So consider these things as you're going and transitioning from full-time job to major trading income. Step number 8, test your trading strategy. Like, this is more focused on having kind of a financial plan, but throughout this whole process, you want to make sure that you know, is my strategy actually worth it? So you want to be documenting, you want to be building out evidence, you want to create a big sample size of your trading strategy. And so by the time that you're doing this, over the years, you will go from demo to trading with maybe a small amount to trading with, starting to feel the reality of live trading. And you're starting to build out this massive proof, week by week, month by month, year by year, that the way you approach the market, given enough time, is profitable and can hit the returns that you're expecting, that you're making in this plan. The more thorough documentation you have of this, the better, right? That was one of the best things that I could have possibly done for myself, was really just take my trading journal, my whole kind of trading station, and being as thorough as possible. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, you guys can check a link somewhere over here and you can kind of see what I do. Step number 9, review and adjust your plan. Look, this is a financial plan, but the truth about plans is they never go as planned. And so things are going to happen in life, and they could be good, they could be bad, they could be ugly. So you might be able to actually save more at one point in your life. Maybe you get a raise, maybe you build a side hustle or you start a business, and now all of a sudden you can do things faster. Or hey, maybe there was an emergency while we're building out this emergency fund and you have to use some of it. And so cool, now we have to modify the plan. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that it's in our line of sight and we're following it. Step number 10, transition gradually. Look, you don't have to go from full-time job to full-time trading overnight, right? This can happen gradually. You start letting go of some of those hours and you start to do it part-time. So you get this feeling of, okay, I'm now expecting less fixed income and I'm leaning more towards my trading, and maybe you have a side hustle or you have another business and now you have money coming in from different ways, until eventually you get to the point where, okay, cool, I'm letting go of this part-time and I'm focused on my trading, and now I'm more comfortable with what that looks like. Step number 11, diversify your income. You hear this all the time. The average millionaire has 7 income streams. But the reality is this: they didn't make $1 million by having 7 income streams. Once they're at $1 million or more, right, that's when income streams started to diversify. So I didn't scale my net worth by doing 1 million different things. I really focused on 2 things, scaled it up. Once I had a lot more to work with, and once I could divert my attention more intelligently and responsibly, then I started to have a couple other things, making some passive income. But I do recommend that as you're getting to that level, once your income, your trading income, it's a bigger portion of it, start to, once you get some profits out of the market, get some money outside of trading as well. Put it to work outside of your trading so that you're not having all of your risk in really one lane. So can you go and, have some crypto and do some staking? You got some dividends going on. Maybe you end up getting some rental property, right? Set up an e-commerce store. There's a million different things that you can do. ATM machines, ATVs, you have jet skis that you have set up and then they're being rented. There's just a lot of options that there are out there that you can do. But what I would recommend is, once you're at that point where, okay, trading, this is my main thing. Honestly, the best feeling is knowing that you don't need trading to give you the freedoms, right? So you almost leverage trading to then put other things to work, so that trading actually starts to just multiply your money and isn't just replacing your income. And there's just such a level of tranquility and peace when you know that it doesn't have to be trading that is covering everything for you anymore, right? So that's the beauty of it. It gives you that financial freedom, it gives you that time freedom and that location freedom, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the only thing that takes care of you. And eventually, maybe it's just the added bonuses. So you want to creatively get to this point in time. And here's the thing, like, once you're at that point of expertise, you might have other skill sets that you can leverage so that, yeah, of course, you're trading full time, but let's say you don't want to withdraw and you want to compound, but you do want to go on a little trip. Hey, let me, maybe you know videography, right? Hey, let me do a video edit. Let me go DJ on the weekend. Let me do Uber for like 8 hours, and I have a little bit extra money just so that we can go and do something like this. So guys, always remember that at the end of the day, you don't want to have only one lane of income. Right? You don't want to, with trading, the number one asset that you have is your state of mind. So with trading, your number one asset is your state of mind, is the peace of outcome, is that emotional intelligence. So protect your environment at all costs. And of course, reinvest into yourself. The number one thing that you can do is reinvest in yourself as a trader, as an investor. The reality is that somebody knows more than you do somewhere. All right, whether it's in a book, whether it's in a course, whether it's in mentorship, whatever it is, there's so much value out there as well. And not only that, you can keep reinvesting into your trading accounts, getting access to more capital, or just manually depositing yourself. And so, like I said, yes, of course, diversify, but also build the main thing. At the end of the day, building the main thing is so incredibly powerful. Final step number 12, and it's this: take a step back. Take a step back and just evaluate. Look at everything that you've done. You've been waiting a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years to get to this moment. Sometimes we don't see all the progress, how close we are to the person we've always wanted to be. At this point in time, if you're at this full-time trader role, guess what? Options, $1 million have just opened up. You don't have to live where you've lived your whole life anymore. You don't have to be the person that's still in their hometown. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you've always had aspirations, or maybe you've never even considered these things because no one ever put it in front of you to consider. So guess what? Now you have location freedom. Now you can experience the world in different ways. Honestly, you might even, like I said, you might even be able to have less in the emergency fund because your expenses are less because you went to go live in South America. You went and found somewhere in Asia that has just way lower cost of living. And so be creative, be open-minded, and go explore. Because at this point in time, that's the thing that makes the most difference. So honestly, even though we had the numbers for 18,000 to 30,000 in emergency fund and a certain amount of trading capital that we're looking for, the reality is that you might not even need that much if you're open-minded, and maybe you want to live somewhere else in the world where it's half the cost to be there or less. But anyways, guys, congratulations. You've made it not just to the end of the video, but now you have a structured plan. Now you have 12 steps so that you can step by step go from having a full-time job to having full-time trading income, but doing it responsibly, doing it in a way where financially it actually makes sense. So anyways, guys, appreciate your time, attention, and energy. And stay tuned because we're gonna dive into so many more topics in the vast world of trading. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate it for the comments, the likes, and the subscribes. And then if you're getting notifications, then I'll see you in the next one.